Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Shenanigans. So, the old woman comes back, middle-aged woman comes back with a pair of drinks, quadro of drinks, sets them down on the table, doing the famous 4-drink carry, which is more difficult than it sounds. 3, pretty easy. 4, ooh, it's a tough one. And looks at you all and goes, well, I would like to thank you very much for your participation in my survey thus far. If you complete the survey, I can offer you a discount coupon to Big Ben's brothel. He is sponsoring our research here. Yes,
wow.
Free soups for the price of one.
That's grand. Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you for your lovely assistance. I just have a few more questions for you. Just a smidge more.
I have one question for you.
Yes, sir.
In all of your studies, have you encountered someone who has traveled to any of these planes? Or heard of anybody who has?
I've met one person who claims to have traveled to one of these planes. Claims.
Okay.
With a big asterisk on it. He was a cleric of Malchus. You can never know if you're trusting those people or not. They're so forthright and convincing and honest, and at the same time, you just know they're trying to stir up shit. But are they trying to stir up shit with the truth, or are they trying to stir up shit with lies? Is it selective truth-telling, or is it outright lying? Or is the chaos the fact that they're telling the truth, but you expect them to be lying so you don't believe the truth? I never know what to do with those people.
So given that no one has ever gone there, do we even know if there exists an area in these planes, or if they are simply a concept, and when you open a portal, the prime material components and elementals and everything can flow out, but nothing can go in? Do we know for a fact there's an area to go?
They're definitely real. Desmond calls from the bench. I've been to the elemental plane of fire a whole bunch. Hang out with a buddy over there. Totally real.
Did you stand on Earth while you were there?
Sorry, I'm busy.
Well, okay. In that episode, he said he was in a room, but that doesn't mean a thing.
Desmond, holder of secrets.
Hey, Desmond, can we borrow your magic rings to go there and just check it for a second?
Nope.
Okay.
So, you asked me something. Oh, right. Who I met. Yes. That one cleric of Malchus. I can't tell if he was lying to me or not.
If we had concrete knowledge to go on, our theories would be much easier.
Well, you see, that's the next phase of my questioning. I have the ability to summon a creature from one of these planes, a creature or two, and I would like to get there. But before I summon these things, first I have to ask if you could have an elemental creature near you. What sort of tests would you like to run on it to determine the nature of reality?
I'd try to heal it with one of my clerical spells and see if my goddess would allow me to heal it or not.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, that or the negative energy to see if that affects them. Do they have a mind? So, because I know some spells work on things with minds, but don't work on things with minds.
That's right. Famously, the Hold Person spell affects the mind of creatures, which is why it has absolutely no effect on the undead. Ooh, so we could try a healing spell.
But does Hold Person work on animals?
Yes.
Not. Hold Animal works on animal. Ooh, that's a good point. We might not want to try Hold Person. We might want to try Hold Monster.
I would say try all of the holds we have to see if we can determine anything from any.
I don't have any.
I have hammers.
Yeah.
I don't think hammers are quite the same as Hold Person, Monster, or Animal, but I like the way you think.
Hammers and ideas.
What other thing? Oh, yes, wizard.
I was gonna say even something like a color spray would be easier, I think, because that doesn't work on a plant. I feel like it doesn't have.
Right, of course. Wizard, you seem to be a little bit quiet. Perhaps Perhaps there's an automatic gain adjustment happening on your voice.
Exactly. Okay. Maybe there is. One second.
You are wise.
Oh, they don't call me the wise woman for nothing.
I can see my goddess allows me to see echoes of magic. So I'll try using my echoes of magic sight upon the being and see what I can see in that regard.
Beautiful.
Are they inherently magical, the elementals, or are they just natural beings within their elements?
Might there be anything in the way of that? Because if we have to summon them with magic, would that create a magic aura around them? Or would that be a different aura? Would we be able to tell them apart, or would they be the same?
A wizard would be able to tell them if they've got like one of the wizard sight spells, but my capacity doesn't extend that far.
Here's another one. If the entity dies, does the constituent parts retain its magic?
Ooh.
I am not trained in the arcane arts, but if there were such spells as, I don't know, spell for ESP to try to read their thoughts or things like that, spells that would probe the mind or probe the magic, maybe a dispel to see if it would affect it, anything like that. There are many magical tests that could potentially happen, but again, I do not.
I don't have
magic.
that one. Sorry.
Well, I have a lot of money, and there's a lot of wizards around here and clerics, and maybe we can hire some of them for some spells. Although, it's a little questionable. They probably won't want to get involved in any fighting that happens. But if we can contain the creatures, maybe they'll be able to help us out. But what other sorts of things should we be prepared for?
Language.
I wouldn't want to. Ooh, language.
Do they
Can
have a
elementals
language?
speak with one another?
Yes. Can they be understood if someone was to speak their language or command them as such?
Like, are they able to learn? So maybe like are they able to remember? Right. The question is if they respond to they have certain fighting tactics, but is that just a natural response, or is it taking into account past knowledge?
And can they speak to one another? If so, like can water speak with fire?
And I would test if they have something that is much lacking in the world these days called critical thinking. I would test them in certain areas to see if they would just simply act or if they would act optimally.
Well, now here's a problem with that test. If I go up to half the people in this room, they'll fail those tests. But that doesn't mean that all members of their race would, right?
Yes.
It's if elementals are sentient, it only stands to reason that you have dumb elementals and smart ones. So while I appreciate your narrowing of scope, I wonder if we have a large enough sample size to properly determine that. Then again, if we hit upon at least one with critical thinking skills, that's an answer, I'm worried about the false negatives.
Yeah.
However, the law of large numbers states that the closer you get to it, the more you run the experiment, the more you can approach your conclusion. If we were to take one of these elementals, say a fire elemental, and have 10 paths, one of which does not have water.
The Minotaur suggesting a maze.
Will it always go down the correct path?
Minotaur suggesting a maze. Okay.
That was
Interesting idea.
Still could be a dumb fire elemental, though.
Yes, it could be.
That's why you keep running it over and over and over.
To go on a different tactic, what about our thoughts on these combinations between the elements? Could you take an earth elemental and infuse it with fire and turn it into a different elemental?
There are lava elementals theoretically.
But does a lava elemental form like on its own, or is it possible to take one and combine it with another elemental?
Yeah, well, if they're living beings, it'd be like merging two souls. But if they're not living beings, well, we don't even know if they've got souls. Because
how would we tell if they have a soul?
There are spells that, like necromancer spells, or the necromancer school spell that can detect souls. But I don't think any of them are operating openly.
But I guess the greater question is, like, is it, like, let's just say you have a water elemental soul. Is that actually a soul of a water elemental, or maybe there's just an elemental soul in general that takes on the parts of its surroundings.
And it could have the beings from that plane could have a different sort of soul that we would be incompatible with our souls.
Yeah.
For all I know. Like Falumbra Cleric might be able to do something with this regard.
So you're suggesting that perhaps an elemental soul in the plane of air is an air elemental, but then if it moves to the plane of water, it becomes a water elemental? And then if it goes to the earth plane, it becomes an earth elemental? Or perhaps it is all these things, but only taking the form of the place that it is and at the time it is?
So all the elementals are one and the same, it's just where they are.
Or even just maybe it starts out as like a prime soul that is not infused with any elements, but then just becomes infused and becomes that thing. Like, depending on how they're created. Like, can you start with, could you have an elemental of nothing, right? Would that be a soul? Just a nothing elemental?
A negative material plane elemental.
But is that a nothing elemental, or is that an elemental of everything?
It's an anti-mental.
Void elemental?
Yeah.
My God, what would that even look like?
A big black hole that just sucks everything in.
Sounds
That's
like
my
a
guess.
Sphere of annihilation.
Yeah, but what are spheres of annihilation?
Perhaps
Exactly,
it's a void elemental, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the things that the... Oh. No. No way to say that. Never mind. In the DMG, they talk about the process of making magical items, and they say the two things you should never, ever let players create are a deck of many things and a sphere of annihilation. And sort of anything else you can maybe argue and let the players create in some way, shape, or form. But you should never let your players create those two because it will destroy the game and the world. Inevitably, someone will put a sphere of annihilation in an ocean and just drain the whole ocean, or, suck up the whole earth. Yeah.
Amatu, did you end up looking at that deck of cards you got last week? Off my dead core.
Did I?
Yeah, you looted my dead character and got a deck of cards.
I have not looked at them yet, but now I'm scared to.
Okay, so you might want to try to heal it, or test if it has a mind with one of these ESP or hold spells, or try to color spray it. See what detect magic might do. See if they have a language, if they can be commanded as per the command spell, if they remember, or if they can try to speak to one another. Attempt to figure out if they have a soul through some, my notes say, necromancy shit?
Yeah, like, as I said, that might not be feasible. Without, so I'm always to have necromantic spells that aren't inherently evil, that might be able to detect souls. But, doing that much is not evil. It's when you start going to graveyards with a shovel, that's when you're going over the line.
Shovels are evil?
Okay, my gods declare them.
Shovels?
Not the shoveling, it's the raising the dead. I think it's souls, not shovels.
I did not think dwarfs were evil.
No.
Shovels aren't evil.
It's not the
Or
racist.
graves aren't inherently evil. It's only when they start doing their job in reverse.
So, if we were to summon an elemental, which would be the easiest to contain?
Earth.
Why?
They're pretty strong, but they're actually the most physical. They're not going to get out of any restraints. But they're
What if
very
they
strong.
meld through the earth?
Yeah.
What if we put a cage on them and they just go under the cage and back out again?
Yeah, you're right.
I mean,
Can
air
we make
elementals will
wards?
just walk through it, right? and water will flow through it, and fire will flow through it, so maybe earth will flow through it too, or maybe it can't. I don't know these things. This is why I'm bothering to ask questions before conducting experiments.
I've heard high-level wizards have, like, containment circles they can create to keep things trapped within.
Magic circle, wow, that would be nice.
Yeah, but that's beyond me.
If only there was a high-level wizard somewhere that could do these experiments.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. There was a funeral the other day.
I have heard high-level wizards should not play with fire.
Well, no one should play with fire. Dangerous thing. What other tests might you want to run?
Can you reduce, like, when elementals are injured, they are told to shrink in size. Does that mean their injury is linked with their size or how much of the element they can contain? I mean, what's it mean to lose life as an elemental? Like, are they, I mean, if they're just constructs or if they are alive, their size does reduce when you injure them. So, I don't know how to test that without injuring one, though.
Or even if you, like, separate, like, I'm thinking with a water elemental, like, if you separate some of the water from it, does that hurt it? Or does it, because water elementals flow around.
Right.
Around itself.
If you throw water to a water elemental, is that how you heal it?
Well, how would you heal an earth elemental? Just
throw rocks at it?
What if we had a big fish tank and we put a water elemental in it, and then we cut the fish tank in half with, like, a little sheet of metal that just separates it?
Would you create two water elementals?
Would you create two water elementals? Could you even shove it down, or would it be more like fleshy and you couldn't push the water apart? Or would one elemental just become smaller? What would happen in that tank?
Well, I don't know what would happen. Like, the logic would say create two elementals. For me.
Or would you push it down to the last point of water, and at that point, the creature itself, the magic or whatever contains it as an elemental form, then it would block it to not allow the separation while allowing the...
Well, then if you took a hammer and it was let's say a guillotine blade, and then you pounded on it, you would then injure the creature enough to split it into two. Which side would the elemental be on?
Both. It's split in half, because the way elementals seem to work is if you injure them, they reduce the size. So if you split them, they become two that are half the size. Like
if
our
I split
souls.
you in half, would you become two people, each of half size?
Well, that's an interesting point, because I'm contained of an amount of soul, while an elf is contained of a larger amount of soul.
I'm pretty sure if I cut you in half, you die.
Yeah, literally would die. Yeah. I'd have ferocity knocking my door. But my point would be that they're alive in a very different way than we're alive. But their size, they're like, the shape they're in, the container of their soul, literally, while our shapes are very different to our soul shape. I
would point out also that it goes one way, but not necessarily the other. If you were to cut him in half, he would die. But could you cut him in half without actually killing him? No attack you make. Fuck, this is really hard to say.
In Minotaur? Yeah.
Yeah, or just in character. Basically, an attack that doesn't kill him could, by definition, not cut him in half. Which is why my water thing is what I say. If you cut the water element in half, if it doesn't die, it would be like you hit someone in the head.
So in order to actually split it into two pieces, you would need to slay the beast.
Yes, that is my theory. The attack would go, but it would not completely separate it unless the blow is enough to kill it.
What about his notion that elementals shrink when injured?
I have not heard of this. Is this true in your studies?
He might be wrong? Ooh.
No, is he true?
I love it when someone contradicts another person. It gives off so much extra information.
Well, I've heard that air elementals, like when you injure them, they reduce in size. That might indicate their injured state, or they're just weakened and they can't hold as much of the element. It's either one. So
I could understand how maybe a weakened elemental has less control over its parts, and so some of it just flows away.
Yeah.
Which would imply the elemental soul that the wizard was speaking about, where it just contains a certain amount of stuff of whatever it happens to be near. Maybe its strength is related to the amount of element it can control, but it itself is not the element it is controlling?
Like it's just maybe it's almost like it itself is the containment field. It's not really the element, maybe.
Right, it's the thing that holds the elements together. Oh, interesting.
And I am reminded that some plants you can cut and they become two plants. And there are some biological animals that if you cut them in half, like a worm, certain worms, they become two worms. But obviously people are far more complicated and that would not work on them. But elements are by definition elemental.
Yeah, I do feel like the water has to be more than just the water, because if I heard that you take a lot of the water elementals, for example, can do a lot of damage to people. It's not really just the physical water hitting you that causes so much hurt to a person. It's the fact that it's stronger.
Also, naturally, you would not be able to hurt the water otherwise.
Yeah, like
otherwise the sword would just go through. Who cares?
Yeah, like damage. Maybe at 50% effectiveness, your weapon would be doing half damage.
Interesting.
And do elementals have names? I don't know. Do they have
that would be under that language section.
Self? Yes, well, I mean, do they have a concept of self? That would be the requirement of name. Because they might be just being alive. Animals might not have names for themselves. The trees might not have names for themselves.
Is one of my main questions I ask. Are they created naturally? Do they reproduce? Is there an infinite source, or is there a finite source? If the plane was closed and they were being created, would they overflow? If the plane was open and they were being killed, would they eventually be extinct?
Yeah. Do the gods have a side hustle here? I don't know.
Yeah, like,
do elementals reproduce? That's a great question.
Well, they're not biological, so they don't reproduce, at least as how we know it.
How do we know? They're not native to these planes. Maybe elementals get it on all the time. Maybe when a water elemental fucks an earth elemental, an air elemental fucks an earth elemental, you get either a water or a fire.
Or the impurities we talked about.
Maybe it becomes like a weird magma creature.
Or, yeah.
Huh. Is that where mephits come from? Are mephits the offspring of elementals? What is a mephit? It's sort of an elemental, right? They're made of a material, a given shape and form.
Yeah, like, are the creatures that we are told are from the elemental planes actually from the elemental planes? Like Zorn are from the elemental plane of Earth, we're told. But I have no concrete proof of that.
Maybe we're going back to mitosis. Maybe the elementals grow and then split, but then they could also merge. Maybe that is how the numbers change.
Ooh.
An elemental of fire can grow and absorb more and more fire, and eventually it can decide to split into smaller ones, and that is how they can reproduce. And then you could have them potentially merge as well. An element of fire and earth can meld into an element of magma.
That feels more likely for me, anyway.
Are they associated with any gods, too?
There's no god of the elements.
That we know.
I mean, we've got Sergej who created the world physically, but he used his hammer and then tossed the dwarves and gnomes out. I mean, he tossed the gnomes and the halflings out. But the Sergej crafted the world, but all the gods had their hand in the crafting of the world, like making the planes. It's all the gods or none of the gods.
Did they create the material plane out of the elements, or is that a result of them creating plane?
We're told the planes were there before our world, but obviously that's just literature. The gods didn't tell us that directly. It could be either way. The planes could be of the world, or the world could be of the planes.
It's an interesting philosophical question. Which came first, the elements or the world?
Or simultaneously, because it's magical gods.
But then have the gods always been around as well? Maybe if the gods came from the elements, does that mean that maybe the gods are elements themselves?
But where did the gods come from?
Our religion teaches us the gods existed before our world existed. And,
well, whatever came first must be the greatest of the gods. So if the elemental planes came before the deities, then the elemental planes must be greater than the gods. Which doesn't seem to make sense. But maybe it's just so far removed that it doesn't even care? I don't know. It's possible, I suppose.
Do we just pray to my god and ask? But
well, I'm sure if these answers were so readily available, you would already have them.
Exactly. All the gods just will say, yeah, we're first, bro. We created everything.
Yes. Is there a broy god?
Jexel?
Jexel, god of luck and wine and brohood? Possible. God of fraternities.
God of family.
Madrigal?
Bro.
I suppose Madrigal could be the broiest of the gods. But Madrigal is typically represented as feminine. What's the feminine version of bro?
Sororities.
Sis.
No, it's not sis. It's chick? Dude?
Oh.
I don't even know.
I don't know.
I do not understand the question.
Doesn't matter.
I think we're not talking about the elementals.
We're back to talk about the elements.
Bruh.
It would have to be Nadinus. Nadinus would have to be the bro god. Because she's the one that creates natural ice. The true drink of all bros.
Very chill. Super chill. So cool.
Anyway, back to the elements. It gets complicated. Oh my god, are druids bros? Holy shit, guys.
Oh god.
Yeah, we don't really see many druids around these parts.
Hey man, what's going on? Yeah, it's almost 420. About to toke up with the nymphs over there. I can totally see druids as just a bunch of like really stoned out bros. Oh my god, this is game changing.
And we also know they when they shapeshift, stuff merges into them, so they're drug mules too.
Yeah, they love growing plants and weeds.
And they can get them to all the towns.
Oh my god, there's gonna be a fucking bro town in Neal's world now. It's just a bunch of druids with their
they
bro
don't live in
bill.
cities naturally.
Yeah. You're just gonna see a town in the woods with like a bunch of smoke coming out of every hut, and it's not gonna be from a fireplace.
And an odd thing too is that full elves can't be druids, but humans and half elves can. I'm like, what? Why the heck aren't elves full druids?
Now it makes sense, because elves aren't broy by nature, but like a half elf might be.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Fair.
I think I get it. Yeah. My god. Okay,
so what's
anyway.
up with the archdruid?
The dealer.
The king of the bros. Sits on his beer can chair. Hey guys, let's just like all get along.
Oh man, druid hazing?
Oh no!
Okay. So, now I can summon one or maybe two, depending on the strength of them, elementals. Which one should we summon?
Well, the water one seems like it can be contained in a fish tank, but we'd have to be really reinforced because those things are very strong.
I believe it seems like water would be the easiest to contain. However, earth would be the easiest to get rid of if it were to escape.
They're very strong no matter what shape they're in.
But can we damage water?
Yes. At half strength. Your swords do half damage. Unless you got a magical weapon, then just full damage.
If you're sure that we can damage them at half strength, then water.
Yeah, but I'm level 1 here, mate. Like it's.
You are what?
I am of the first circle of cleric powers. My powers are not very strong, so I fear my strength against such beings might be really weak here.
So what we need to do is to create a metal containment for the water elemental with fire under it to heat it up to such a high temperature that the water elemental would not want to touch it.
Are water elementals, does heat really even hurt them? I mean, I know that fire
elementals
are hurt by
water elementals.
Would evaporate, no? Would it not evaporate if it tried to mess with a scalding hot wall?
Not as immediately as like a fire elemental would be destroyed, right? Certainly less so.
Maybe we should make an inverse aquarium for a fire elemental then. We can make a glass or something box, put it inside a bigger aquarium filled with water, and summon the fire elemental inside. So if it were to break any wall, the water would just collapse on top of it.
Well, they can fly. Like, I think the point of the fish tank is that, like, water elementals can't fly, right? So it's easier to, like, we have an access point to do things to them from the top. Whereas, like, you don't really have...
elementals fly. I know methods can.
If fire elementals cannot fly, can we not just summon it on an island? Even the smallest, tiny little island in a river?
That's an idea.
Seems like the simplest solution with virtually no cost or time to create. We simply need to go to a lake or river or something and find some form of outcropping of a rock or something in the water.
They can throw fireballs, though, I've heard.
We just need to dodge.
And have a wide enough river that it can't hit the forest or anything else outside it.
Are you a cleric of Nadinus?
No. Ephra.
Yes.
Inspiration?
Does Ephra care about forests?
You could keep them there for a long time because they could never really escape from the river.
Hey.
Yes.
That's not talking about forest fires, okay, mate? Like, I mean, they can be beautiful and inspiring, but they get out of control and then it's a calamity.
Only you can prevent forest fires.
You could put up the original fires, right? As long as, like, you can't keep starting, like, eventually the trees burn down in that area and you can contain it. Because they don't have infinite range. They can't just keep shooting out.
Yeah, but fire spreads.
But that's what you stop the initial. You could start a fire at the beginning to destroy it.
Depends what season of the year it is, because obviously this is whatever year. But what season is it, Neal? Is it dry?
Right now?
Right out? Yeah. In game. Like, are we going to cause a forest fire by just tapping on?
It is the second month of the year. It is February.
So, yeah, northern hemisphere weather. So.
Yeah, northern hemisphere weather. So it is winter.
If you're this worried, you can do this along an island by the desert to the northeast.
Oh, well, the Spice Isles? Yeah, that could work, yeah. Spice Isles to the north, yeah. They've even got a volcano there.
That seems far, though.
I'm sure that we could just do a time skip and get there.
I believe that fire elemental on an island seems like the best bet.
Fire elemental on an island. We could make that happen.
Yeah.
If we are worried for ourselves and we do not wish to dodge fireballs, we can always create a stone wall to take cover in on shore.
So go to an island, make a big wall, and then create a fire elemental on the other side of the wall?
Yeah. Well, we don't want to be in the same
on the other side of the wall on the island. Like, the wall would be on land is what I'm picturing. So you know how, like, I'm just gonna say it. So you know how, like, by oceans, water, whatever, there's usually like little stone outcroppings and stuff, right? Naturally, sometimes there's stones that come out of the water. you could just do it literally on any of those. I doubt the fire elemental needs a big island. It's going to be like, I can't move. And then basically perpendicular to the water and the fire elemental on land, I would just make a wall so that we can study it from land without having to get near it.
Right,
so you would do like an island in a river or something like this, and the fire elemental would be over here, and then you'd have like a little wall that you stand behind on the other side of the river that you can peer out and around to watch it.
That's what I'm thinking.
Well, wait. At this point, why wouldn't we just make like a big pit, I guess, that they can't escape from and put it in the pit?
Oh, yeah, they can't get out of a pit if they can't fly, so that makes more sense, yeah. I didn't think of that.
So we could dig a pit, or we could put it on an island in a river and stand on the other bank.
Yeah, and also, we could do a pit for the water elemental since it can't go out.
Well, can the water elemental flow through Earth in the way that water flows through Earth? Have you ever been to a cliff and seen it beep? Water does flow through Earth. Have you seen water flow through sand? It's possible.
Yeah,
I like
right.
this fire on an island. I like the fire island approach.
And I cannot see a water elemental. I cannot see a water elemental being contained with a pit, or I cannot see a water elemental moving through Earth. I feel like it would be unlikely for an elemental to be able to move freely through a direct opposite element. The same way fire would not be able to move through dirt.
Wait, no, the opposite of fire is water.
I'm not saying direct opposite, I'm just saying a different element.
Oh, right.
Maybe.
Like, otherwise you'd be able to say, okay, fire elemental can fly, fire elemental can go through dirt, et cetera, because it's not physical, but like...
Well, some air elementals don't fly, but they're just tornadoes that just go around the place.
Regardless, when I'm talking about freedom of movement, I feel like an elemental should only be able to flow freely through its own element, not through others, is what I'm kind of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, we can't exactly summon an earth elemental in the air or just land.
Okay. Well,
or we summon a water elemental next to that volcano on Volutin Island.
Next to a volcano?
There's an active volcano.
Next to it?
Yeah, because if you're getting a river of water, an island in the middle of a river of lava.
Oh, okay. Then you just went like next to it. Be afraid. Don't do anything. There's a volcano right there.
No, a river of lava on Embershore Isle. There's an active volcano there, and you've got a river of lava, and the water elemental couldn't escape that island. So we've got two islands: Fire Island and a lava island.
And yeah, just to finish that last thought, a water elemental in a pit would be able to corrode the sides with like water gun and shit like that.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, moving on. That was what I was getting at.
It can climb out. Yeah.
I like the island. Yeah.
Mind you, the lava island's very non-conducive for us, though.
So, what plan would you like to go with?
It does seem easiest to just put it on an island, and we don't have to dig a big hole, and that we don't.
That's one of them. Yeah. Look, the fire elemental on a normal island. Yeah.
Also, it occurs to me that a water elemental on a lava island could potentially just turn the lava into stone and then exit.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Or better reduced in strength doing so.
Okay, let's go find an island.
All right.
There should be one very nearby because there is a river that leaves this town. So I'm sure if we just follow that river, we will eventually come across a small island. How small of an island do we need? Or how large of an island do we need? How much space should be on either side of this island to prevent the fire creature from hopping from one side to the other?
Do fire elementals jump?
I don't know. Do we only need an inch of water, or do we need like 30 feet of water?
I would assume we would need enough water that it could not simply step over. I would be surprised if they could jump, considering I believe there would be this division of elements in my mind.
Well, it's not like a vampire. They can move over moving water. It's just if there's too much moving water, they can't get over it.
Right. Yeah. If they can't fly and they don't have knees, how can you jump? You can't jump without bending your knees or your ankles. And as far as I know it, fire elementals have neither ankles nor knees nor toes.
This would be my presumption as well.
Yeah. but they can take large strides. So we've got to make sure the river is significant enough for it can just step out.
Do we know how large an elemental we are summoning?
Not really.
No. No, we're not. Of course not. So,
Ender of worlds.
So, how big of an island do we need, and how much water do we want on either side?
I do not believe the size of the island matters. If anything, I assume the smaller the island, the better, so it cannot simply go to one end or the other to change distances on us.
Okay.
How
Small island,
wide,
then.
Large enough for the elemental.
Be?
As large as possible, naturally.
So where would we be, and how would we do our tests on it?
It depends on the distance of the spells.
Yeah, and by the way, my healing spells are touch things, so okay.
Would you be able to use spells to, say, breathe underwater to approach the elemental from underwater?
I don't have that one.
Theoretically, would somebody be doing research be able to?
No, I don't have that. That's a hard spell.
Yeah. We don't breathe underwater.
We have money to pay for spells, according to this researcher.
Well, I mean, we could always get some scrolls of water breathing and use them.
Simply put, safety first. When summoning fire elementals, I would have a large enough area from the shore. And simply we can approach it from underwater if needed.
All right.
Okay. I'm going to bring you guys to a map. And during our break, I will let you design the island that we are going to do this experiment on.
Yeah, all right.
In fact, we're just going to stay on this exact same map. I'm going to move these doodles. Oh my god, the doodles didn't move. Move these doodles.
Put them in the same layer.
Over here. And we're going to make the map much bigger. And I think you guys understand how to use the drawing tools well enough. So we're going to take our break, and when we come back on the other side of our break, we will run some elemental experiments. So see you guys on the other side of Shenanigans. Bye-bye.